Welcome, everyone. I understand we have a range of folks here, people who are maybe involved in EDGI early on and are now coming back. Also, some of you who may not have been involved in EDGI at all and are just getting to know us. I've tried to gauge this for everyone, all these different folks that we've anticipated are gathering here today. And I hope that it is not just the right level of detail and overview to give you a sense of what we've been doing within the scope of 15 minutes I have. So the race begins. Well, I think my first thought here is just about how long it seems since we got started. 5 years ago, it does seem like it's a world away, and for a lot of reasons. But I do think we've grown. I mean, we've changed in those 5 years. We've developed an agenda. We've developed a better sense of what we do. We developed a more sustainable sense of what we can do. We've, I think, found our place in the world as an organization going forward. I mean, we've started out, and I think this really shaped how we began the transition to the Trump administration, a kind of a crisis, an environmental and civic emergency. And we were all just thinking at that time, oh, what can we do next? The very next thing that's going to make a difference, that's going to somehow enable us to push back against what we anticipated would happen with Trump and coming to Washington. I think we've learned a lot in that process, the 4 years that we've in which we've been seeing ourselves as pitted against the Trump administration, what's going on in that arena. We've learned also that they've really opened up fissures and demonstrated weaknesses in the larger landscape of environmental protection and environmental data. And I think that's where we found our footing in terms of longer term sustainable activities for EDGI. And going into the Biden administration, I mean, that has been a transition and a good one. I think it's been nice to have an administration that's a little more environmentally friendly. But we've also found a lot of work to do there in repairing, not just in repairing the damage, but in fixing those fissures and gaps and weaknesses that we see in the overall system of America's environmental data and governance. For those of you who are less acquainted with us, we have about 50 active members now involved on Slack and so forth, from academic institutions, also nonprofits, grassroots organizations, different kinds of groups. We're a variety of professions. We're social scientists and scientists. We're people involved in the nonprofit sector and volunteers from other walks of life, retirees, some of us. Most of us are volunteers, and a lot of the work that gets done is by people lending their own time. What brings us all together, this diverse group, is what we aspire to do, to hold governing agencies and industries accountable, to promote and also reflect these values and transparency and collaboration, community-centric data and research. And we do seek to model those same values in our own organization and work, which is also a part of the task that bring us together. I need to say something about what enables us to have some paid staff, and that is our funders. And our fiscal sponsor multiplier. We made the transition last year, and I think we're both sides are pleased with that. We're also funded by the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation, ESIP and CS&S, as well as all our volunteers are really our funders in a way, because they provide all that extra skilled labor that really makes EDGI tick. Just to give you an overview of the program areas, and I'll be going into a little more depth in each one of them. One of the things that EDGI has done and continues to do is monitor websites, especially the federal environmental agencies. Another thing that we've done is interview EPA staff in particular, that's who we started with, but federal experts to get their vantage point on what's going on now and what should happen in the realm of governance and data. We also have been working on a front we call environmental data justice to connect research and advocacy, our own, with principles of data justice that I'll talk a little bit more about. And then finally, we have part of our group looking at and scrutinizing our own organizational structure to think about how to make it, enable it to better live up to our values. A values-focused, non-hierarchical organization is what we keep aspiring to be, and I think making our way there. Although it is, you know, it's a lot of work there too. Now, some of you may remember back in early 2017, maybe the first thing you heard of EDGI was about these data archiving events. This effort to save the data as the Trump administration was coming in there. People were worried that they would be the new leadership would go after vital environmental data that had heretofore been unprotected and unguaranteed. But so this was really a grassroots movement that happened across college campuses, and EDGI played a key role in it. We helped to design these events and coordinate the collection of the data and so on. Well, I think one of the things that's happened is, and you'll note this handshake icon now has a different set of descriptors to it. That's because our data-related activities have shifted in the last while. Now we don't really do that much archiving, and the passage has come through this group that EDGI helped pull together called Data Together, to have this kind of conversation about how better to steward data in terms of ethics, in terms of best practices, and also in terms of decentralizing the web. So decentralized web principles that this group became involved in, stating these principles, working with the Internet Archive on that. And subsequently, where we've gone in our data work has been especially looking at EPA's enforcement and compliance history online. It's big database for enforcement and violation information. And we've been trying to apply those decentralized web principles, some of them, to our work with this database, starting by mirroring it and then developing customizable ways into it that can really get to what I think a lot of citizens and communities and groups want to see from this data in ways that go beyond what the EPA interface allows. So this gets to our first working group, and you can see up here on the upper left-hand corner the breakout room that you can go to ask and find out more. So this is our environmental data justice working group. This has been a real commitment of EDGI, is to explore this notion of environmental data justice, which is coined actually by an EDGI member. Looking into what a justice-minded approach to environmental data would mean, among other things, how it might involve building better frameworks, coming up with alternative visions for how to create, to care for, and to share environmental data. We've, part of the work here has been writing academic papers, such as the one you see here. Other activities have involved webinars like the one posting you see here, where we brought together 6 groups involved in environmental data justice related projects, and they exchanged a lot of information, and I think it was a very fruitful conversation there. Among those involved were a group from Chelsea, Massachusetts, another the U.S. Indigenous Data Sovereignty Network. So getting these groups talking to one another and seeing what they can learn from one another. Now, environmental data justice, our working group on that has taken up the Environmental Enforcement Watch. and used that sort of area, the database, the Jupyter notebooks we used for the customizable data to work with communities and develop data platforms and visualizations and so on that really speak more to what these communities and local groups need. We've also in this group, the Environmental Enforcement Watch, or EDGI, has done its own reports and coming up with things like demonstrating the increase in violations in the Clean Water Act under Trump, the reduction in enforcement actions with the COVID rules that the Trump people put in place, and also various notebook or report cards based on the notebooks by congressional district. And now they're working with groups to develop these same kinds of report cards for individual watersheds. So that in connection with some of the watershed groups. So this has been a very fruitful area of work, sort of extending our data work from the archiving era. Another working group I want to introduce you to is web monitoring. In the first years of EDGI, our web monitoring team really became the authoritative voice nationally for what was going on with federal websites in the Trump administration, especially environmental websites. So they're the ones who came up with the most solid and widely consulted information, for instance, about the erasure of climate change language from websites across the federal government. And you know, they looked at all sorts of other angles of change as well, and so they have continued that work into the Biden administration, and also bringing together a lot of their work from the Trump years. So they came up with this in the last year with a cumulative report called Access Denied on the changes under Trump, really pulling together the 4 years of transformation of federal websites. And again, the most authoritative numbers we have about exactly what the scale of change and the directions of change were. They're also moving into academic publication for a lot of this information. Some of the first articles out there in the scientific literature on this kind of federal, the content of federal websites. And then also making it available for other people to research these kinds of this kind of data on website changes through this federal environmental web tracker, which is a public data set of all the searching that they've done across the thousands and thousands of websites over the 4 years and beyond. So other researchers can now go in and do their own scholarship and investigation of website changes, so opening this whole frontier up for other researchers. And the other third working group is our interviewing and policy monitoring. The interviewing project has now taken on the rubric policy monitoring as well as interviewing in the expansion of its activities, but it broke a couple of stories through the interviews over the last 4 years, the impact of the Trump people on the career staff at EPA, and also the decline in enforcement. Our reports, you can see the covers here, broke those stories, and we've also been publishing in academic journals and showing up at congressional hearings that were partly inspired by some of the revelations we turned up. Well, what this group has been doing more recently is we have started a website called People's EPA, People's EPA, or APE, APE. It contains public histories of the agency, its origins, and various areas of its activity, like toxics and climate change enforcement. We're also beginning to put up our interview transcripts there from the over 150 interviews that we've done with EPA staff. We've got a repository, keyword searchable, of FOIAs from the environmental era from a host of environmental groups. And now we're also doing a regular news feed of what's going on with the Biden EPA. And you can find all of the news feeds from January on there. We've also carved out some separate projects and looking at various areas of environmental governance and environmental justice. So we're publishing articles on that, and also on children's health is another one of the special areas that we've been focused on in policy monitoring and interviewing. And finally, let me bring up as a part of that working group for the breakout rooms, you can go hear more about the Environmental History Action Collaborative, which is our newest working group coming on board starting in really late 2019, early 2020 to become a working group emerging out of the American Society for Environmental History, and also an initiative to write a amicus brief for the Juliana versus US court case on climate change. They've been involved, or we've been involved in working on annotations, and annotations of Biden as well as Trump speeches and on op-eds and so on. Finally, our last breakout room is going to be combining our work in radical or alternative organization and communications. This has been a big concern of us over the last 4 years, and we're constantly visiting and revisiting these kinds of questions. Among the outcomes, more recently, we've been honing our non-hierarchical structure, working on employment and making sure that the terms of we have employees, making sure that the terms of their employment are as good as we can make them. And with benefits, and we look carefully at equity in salaries and in hiring and so on. And finally, we've in the last while, especially been able to expand our influence across various media spheres, and especially social media. You can see some the big followership and impressions and so on that we've been able to engage. And we also have kept up steady presence in news coverage and news articles with something like, I think we've alternated, we're still about 50 a year of news media coverage of our activities. So that's a whirlwind tour of what we've been doing, with an emphasis on the last year.